Feeling hungry is generally what cues people to eat to begin with. Tastes, textures, smells. Oh my, what is up with autistics and food? Let's dive in. Welcome to my channel. For those that don't know me, I'm Rachel Kelly. I am a late diagnosed autistic, and on this channel, we discuss all things neurodivergence. Today, we're going to talk about autism and food. This is actually a very interesting subject with lots of statistics and facts and studies, and I think you will find this all very helpful. Let's check it out. I think it's safe to say that having issues with food is prevalent in the autistic community. Up to 70% of autistic children have avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, and as many as 20 to 35% of adult anorexics are autistic. So, why is this? There's a variety of factors to take into account. For some, it comes to sensory processing issues. With autistics in the brain, there's extra synapse connections. So, autistics have sensory sensitivities that affect our lives across the board. So, when it comes to food, certain textures, smells, tastes, and sounds are completely unbearable. Another trait of autism is known as interoception confusion, which is not receiving cues from the body. So, not having a sense of hunger can cause one to literally forget to eat, especially when you take into account the hyperfocus that comes with autism. When someone is so into what they're doing, plus they're not receiving a hunger cue, of course we're going to forget to eat. So, gastrointestinal issues. Yes, I said it. So, let's think about this. Autistics generally have a problem with anxiety. It is a trait. And when you consider what happens when anyone is struggling with anxiety, what does it affect? It affects our bodies. So it's only natural that autistics are therefore going to have these problems when it comes to food. So one could either be suffering at the time and not want to eat as a result, or develop a fear of eating certain foods, being afraid to eat because of the result that it could bring. Another aspect is social. A lot of eating is done in groups of people. And when it comes to the autistic who may be suffering from social anxiety, autistic burnout, or even being nonverbal at the time, sitting with a group of people and eating when we already have all the other issues can simply be out of the question. The social challenges alone that come with autism can make this a very unpleasant experience. And let's talk about restaurants. Restaurants are a sensory explosion for the autistic. When an autistic walks into a restaurant, everything hits us all at once. The sounds, the smells, everything that we see, the chaos, the unfamiliarity, everything's moving. There may be music playing. All of that comes unfiltered like a wave into the autistic mind and assaults our senses. That can set us up for a completely anxiety producing experience. I personally have issues when I sit down in a crowded restaurant of not being able to read the menu. I can read really well, but when my senses are so overloaded, I can be looking at the words and they literally do not make it into my brain. I can see them, but I don't know what they mean. It's very difficult, especially when I am with my family and I'm helping my daughter figure out what she wants to eat and getting her set up. And, my husband may be talking to me and, the waitress will come ask us uh, and it's really difficult, especially if I had gone in with intentions and maybe trying something new. And there are certain things that we can do up front to make going to restaurants a much easier and maybe even pleasant experience. So let's talk about anorexia. Studies have shown that as many as 20 to 35% of anorexics that are adults are autistic. Why? Why is that? So let's talk about this. With the autistic that is anorexic, it tends to be less about body image and more about masking emotions and anxiety. This can further be exacerbated by what's known as alexithymia, which is a difficulty in knowing what one's emotions are. And what if it is about body image? Of course, you're going to have the adult autistic that is simply trying to get healthier, that wants to lose some weight, that wants to get in shape, that wants to start exercising. What's wrong with that? When it comes to the autistic, we have a tendency to fixate, to be all or nothing, to hyperfocus. And when you take counting calories into account and exercising, taking these things to the extreme can be very harmful to our bodies when it's simply following the natural routines of the autistic brain. of hyperfocus and fixating. So, what is avoidant restrictive food intake disorder? Studies have shown that as many as 70% of autistic children have this disorder. It's a fairly new DSM category, and it's more common in children and adolescents rather than adults. This comes from extreme sensory sensitivities. Again, when it comes to textures, tastes, smells, even sounds. Autistics also can struggle with what is known as misophonia. I personally have this. So that is a extreme hatred, a complete intolerance for certain sounds. If one has a complete intolerance for chewing sounds, well, sitting at a table with other people, listening to them chew, forget about it. There can also be fear of a bad outcome that can come from eating. As many as 50% of children with this disorder have a fear of choking or vomiting and therefore don't want to eat. Another predominant reason behind this disorder is simply a lack of interest. Again, we have interoception issues, a lack of hunger cues, and a child that is hyper-focused on what they have at hand. When you have an autistic child that is hyper-focused on a task, that struggles with transitions, and has zero hunger cues, getting them to stop and redirecting them to eat food can be a recipe for a giant meltdown. So let's talk about treatment plans. Standard treatment plans that are designed for the neurotypical do not accommodate autistics. For instance, standard treatment plans for adult anorexics tend to focus on body image heavily. So if you have an autistic that is struggling with anorexia because they're trying to mask their emotions and their anxiety, trying to fit them into a mold of a program designed around body image is not going to be effective. Then we have group therapy, which can be a horrible experience for an autistic. You have all the social challenges that can come with the autistic brain. On top of that, you have an autistic that is already in a situation that is completely anxiety producing. So, trying to sit an autistic down with a group of people with this social situation and talk about something that we don't even understand. If we have the factors of alexithymia coming into play and anxiety and social challenges all mixed together, and we are sat down in a group of people and this is supposed to help us, there's no way. And on top of these things, we have the whole medical clinic situation. Medical clinics are another sensory assault with the bright lights, the sounds, the smells, the people. It can be extremely overwhelming to the autistic brain. And placing an autistic in this situation, in this environment, and it's meant to be helpful and healing, it could likely have the opposite effect. All of these standard treatment factors can cause more harm than good. They could cause autistic burnout or withdrawal and depression. So, when it comes to treatment for the autistic, it's important to do it with the autistic brain in mind and the core issues behind all this. What's driving the behavior? And what nutritional deficiencies do we need to address? Those are two very important factors when it comes to treatment. There are lots of success stories of the neurotypical moving through these treatments and recovering and having a changed life. But when it comes to the autistic person, we must do better. Developing treatment plans specifically designed for the autistic would be a remarkable improvement among the autistic community. There are some resources for autistics with eating disorders. So there's a website called Peace. I'll put the link below. It's called peacepathway.org. There's also a book that I'll link below. You can find on Amazon. It's by Kate Chanturia, and it's called Supporting Autistic People with Eating Disorders. She is a renowned psychologist, and the book has great reviews. There's also a really great app called Trainwell. It is designed to develop healthy habits with eating and exercise. It comes highly recommended by a fellow autistic creator. I'll link that below as well. I've had my own personal experience with anorexia, and looking back, I can see where autistic factors come into play. As always, I think it's very important when we are looking at the autistic person that we never try to place them into a neurotypical box. When looking at motives and reasons and factors and treatment and resources, we must take the autistic brain into account. And remember that no two autistics are alike. It is said among the community that if you've met an autistic person, you've met an autistic person. Oh, and now you've met Cheeto. Oh my goodness. So, do you have experience with autism and an eating disorder? Drop a comment below. I'd love to chat about it. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I enjoyed chatting with you guys. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for the latest content. I try to shoot for weekly videos. This one was really overdue. I really appreciate the support. So I hope you all are having a good day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.